The morning mist hung low over the Colorado Territory. September 1876, as Eliza Whitfield stood at the edge of her father's ranch, surveying the damage. Broken fence posts jutted from the ground like accusing fingers, their splintered wood testament to neglect and misfortune. Half the cattle had wandered off through the gaps, and those that remained looked as dispirited as she felt. "Miss Eliza, you shouldn't be out here alone," Maria Torres called from the porch, her weathered hands wringing a dishcloth. The Mexican woman had been with the Whitfield family for 15 years, long enough to remember when the ranch prospered. "Someone has to assess what needs doing," Eliza replied, her voice steady despite the weight pressing on her chest. At 24, she'd spent the last 3 years teaching at the Silver Creek schoolhouse, finding purpose in chalk dust and children's laughter. Now, with her father bedridden from a riding accident and the bank circling like vultures, that comfortable life seemed a distant dream. The sound of approaching hoofbeats made both women turn. Barnaby Blackwood rode up the dusty path, his black suit incongruous against the rustic backdrop. Everything about the banker screamed Eastern refinement, from his waxed mustache to his polished boots that had never known honest work. "Miss Whitfield." He tipped his hat, though his smile held no warmth. "I trust you received my letter regarding your father's obligations." "I received your threats, if that's what you mean." Eliza stepped forward, chin raised. She'd learned long ago that showing weakness to men like Blackwood only encouraged them. "Such harsh words. I prefer to think of it as a business opportunity." He dismounted, uninvited, his pale eyes scanning the property with proprietary interest. "Your father owes the bank considerable sums. The ranch barely produces enough to cover interest, let alone principal. The cattle scattered because someone cut our fences." Eliza's hands clenched at her sides. "Strange how that happened right after you expressed interest in our water rights." Blackwood's laugh was soft as silk and twice as dangerous. "Speculation and accusation won't pay your debts, my dear. However, I'm prepared to be generous. Sell me the eastern pasture and water access, and I'll extend your loan another 6 months. That land is worth 10 times what we owe." "In better times, perhaps, but these aren't better times, are they?" His gaze traveled over her simple calico dress, lingering with an insolence that made her skin crawl. "Of course, there might be other arrangements we could discuss. A young woman of your beauty shouldn't have to bear such burdens alone." Maria's sharp intake of breath matched Eliza's own. The implication hung in the air like smoke from a distant wildfire. "Get off our land." Eliza's voice could have frosted the morning grass. "You'll have your money, but not 1 inch of Whitfield soil." 2 weeks, Miss Whitfield. After that, the bank will be forced to take action." He mounted his horse with practiced ease. "Do give my regards to your father. Such a shame about his accident." After he rode away, Eliza sagged against the fence post, splinters digging into her palms. Maria approached, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Perhaps it's time to write your cousins in St. Louis," the older woman suggested. "They would take you in." "And abandon the ranch, the school, everything my parents built." Eliza shook her head. "I won't run. Not again." Maria's eyes softened with understanding. 3 years ago, when Thomas Hartley had broken their engagement 2 days before the wedding, claiming a schoolteacher wife wouldn't suit his political ambitions, Eliza had wanted nothing more than to disappear. The whispers and pitying looks had nearly broken her. Only her father's steady presence and her students' needs had kept her anchored. "Then what will you do, mija?" Eliza straightened, decision crystallizing. "First, I'll see father. Then I'll ride to town and find help. Someone who knows cattle and can repair fences quickly. The good workers are already hired for the season. Then I'll find someone others have overlooked." Eliza managed a thin smile. "After all, I've some experience with being underestimated." An hour later, she sat beside her father's bed, holding his calloused hand. Samuel Whitfield had aged a decade in the month since his horse threw him. The once robust rancher seemed to shrink into the pillows. His breathing labored. "Eliza, girl," he whispered, eyes focusing with effort. "You should be at the schoolhouse. Term doesn't start for another week. Papa, rest now." "The ranch? I'll handle it." She squeezed his hand, infusing her voice with confidence she didn't feel. "Blackwood came by, but I sent him packing." A ghost of a smile crossed her father's lips. "That's my girl. Your mother would be proud." Eliza blinked back tears. Her mother had died 5 years ago, worn down by frontier hardships and a fever that wouldn't break. She'd been the one to insist Eliza get proper schooling, to become more than just another rancher's wife. "Papa, I need to hire help. The fences." "The old receipts are in my desk. Whatever you need." His eyes drifted closed. "Trust your instincts. Liza, you've got your mother's spine and my stubbornness. That's a powerful combination." By afternoon, Eliza had changed into her split riding skirt, scandalous by town standards, but practical for ranch work, and ridden into Silver Creek. The town sprawled along the railroad line, a collection of wooden buildings that seemed to spring from the earth itself. The Grand Hotel anchored Main Street, flanked by Sampson's General Store, the Silver Dollar Saloon, and Blackwood's Bank. Its brick facade a statement of permanence and power. She hitched her mare outside the saloon, ignoring the raised eyebrows from passing townswomen. Decent ladies didn't frequent such establishments, but Eliza had learned that conforming to expectations rarely solved problems. The Silver Dollar's interior was dim and thick with tobacco smoke. Conversation stuttered to a halt as she entered, all eyes turning to the schoolmarm who dared invade this masculine sanctuary. Miss Whitfield. The bartender, Jake Morrison, Sheriff Morrison's younger brother, recovered first. "Can I help you?" "I need to hire a ranch hand, someone skilled with cattle and fence repair." Nervous laughter rippled through the room. "Most folks are already contracted, miss." Jake said kindly, "Maybe try the Chinese camp, mister. Chen sometimes knows of workers." "I'll pay fair wages," Eliza announced to the room at large, "plus bonuses for quick, quality work." "With what money?" someone muttered, and Eliza recognized Ben Carter, one of Blackwood's clerks. Everyone knows the Whitfield ranch is mortgaged to the rafters. Heat flamed in her cheeks, but she kept her voice level. "That's between my family and the bank. I'm offering honest work for honest pay." "I'll take it." The voice came from the back corner, where shadows pooled thick. A man unfolded from his chair, tall, lean, with the kind of contained stillness that suggested either complete relaxation or coiled readiness. As he stepped into the light, Eliza catalogued sun-weathered skin, dark hair that needed cutting, and gray eyes that seemed to take in everything while revealing nothing. "You know cattle?" she asked. "I do." "Fence work?" "That too." "May I ask your qualifications?" A smile ghosted across his lips. "I've worked ranches from Texas to Montana. I can read terrain, manage water, doctor sick animals, and build fences that'll stand through winter storms and summer floods." He paused. "I also work cheap." "Why?" "Because I need the job, and you need the help." Seemed straightforward enough. Eliza studied him. His clothes were worn but clean, his boots quality despite their age. His hands bore the calluses of hard work, but his speech suggested education, a puzzle, but she had no time for mysteries. "What's your name?" "Wade Hollister." "Not from around here?" "Just passing through, or I was, until my horse went lame and my funds ran low." He shrugged. "Your timing's good, Miss Whitfield. Another day and I'd have moved on." "The job includes room and board. Bunkhouse isn't much, but it's clean." "Sounds like luxury compared to some places I've slept." She made her decision, ignoring the voice that warned against hiring drifters. "Can you start immediately?" "Soon as you're ready to ride back." "Wages are..." "Whatever you can afford now." with the rest when the work's done." He held up a hand to forestall her protest. "I heard what Ben there said about mortgages. I'm gambling that you're good for it. Same as you're gambling I'm worth hiring." They shook hands, his grip firm but careful, as if aware of his greater strength. As they turned to leave, Ben Carter called out, "Careful, Miss Whitfield. Take in strays and you might catch fleas." Wade paused, glancing back. Better fleas than the kind of parasites that feed on other folks' misfortunes. His mild tone somehow made the words sharper. "Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Carter?" They rode back to the ranch as the sun slanted low, painting the grasslands gold. Wade had retrieved his horse, indeed, favoring its right foreleg and his few possessions from the boarding house. He rode slightly behind, giving her space while maintaining protective proximity. "Mr. Hollister," she began. "Wade," he corrected. "If we're working together, might as well skip the formalities." "Very well. Wade, I should warn you that Mr. Blackwood has expressed interest in the ranch. There might be complications. Banker, right fancy suit, dead eyes, smile like a snake." Despite everything, Eliza felt her lips twitch. An apt description. "Met his type before. They're why I prefer horses to most people." He paused. "Present company accepted." They crested the hill overlooking the ranch as sunset painted the sky crimson. Wade pulled up, studying the layout with professional interest. "Good bones," he said finally. "Whoever started this knew what they were doing. Water access, natural windbreaks, room to expand. Just needs some tending. My father built it from nothing. 25 years of work. Then it's worth fighting for." The simple statement, delivered without sentiment or false encouragement, somehow steadied her more than any amount of sympathy could have. As they descended toward the ranch house, Maria emerged, lantern in hand. Her sharp gaze assessed Wade with the protectiveness of a mother hen. "Maria, this is Wade Hollister. He'll be helping with repairs." "Wade. Maria Torres runs the household and knows more about this ranch than anyone." Wade touched his hat brim. "Ma'am, I'd be obliged for any guidance you can offer." Maria's expression softened fractionally. "You'll want to see the bunkhouse. I'll have supper ready in an hour." As Wade led his limping horse toward the stables, Eliza caught Maria's arm. "What do you think?" "He has careful hands," Maria observed. "See how he handles the horse, gentle but sure. A man who's kind to animals bears watching, but usually for good reasons." That night, over a simple meal of beans and cornbread, Wade laid out his initial plans. He'd sketched a rough map on brown paper, marking fence lines and water sources with surprising accuracy for someone who'd only seen the property once. "First priority is the north pasture," he said, pointing with his fork. "Get those fences up and we can move the remaining cattle away from the road. Harder to steal what's not convenient." "You think rustlers hit us?" "Fences don't cut themselves." His tone remained neutral. "Question is whether they were freelancing or following orders." Eliza met his gaze. "You're very direct. Saves time. You strike me as someone who values honesty over pretty words." "And what makes you think that?" "You walked into a saloon in broad daylight to hire help, knowing full well what people would say." He pushed back from the table. "That takes backbone and practical sense. Pretty words don't mend fences or save ranches." After he'd gone to the bunkhouse, Maria observed, "That one's running from something. Aren't we all?" Eliza stared out the window at the darkened range. "As long as he runs toward work instead of away from it, I don't care about his past." But late that night, as she reviewed her father's accounts by lamplight, Eliza wondered what could drive a man with Wade's obvious skills to work for promises and possibilities. The ledgers painted a grim picture they had perhaps 3 weeks before Blackwood could legally begin foreclosure procedures. A soft knock interrupted her calculations. Maria peered in, shawl wrapped tight. "That man, Wade, he's walking the fence lines with a lantern." Eliza joined her at the window. Sure enough, a bobbing light moved systematically along the broken boundaries. Planning his work for tomorrow, Eliza said, but she wondered, was he truly surveying or standing guard? And if the latter, what did he expect to find in the darkness? The next morning brought answers of a sort. Wade appeared at breakfast with a grim expression and something wrapped in burlap. Found these near the cut fences. He unwrapped 3 horseshoes, all with distinctive markings. Fancy work. Not many farriers in these parts capable of this kind of detailing. Eliza examined them. The Rocking Bee uses shoes like this. The Rocking Bee was Blackwood's personal spread, adjacent to their eastern border. Interesting coincidence. Wade rewrapped the evidence. Mind if I keep these? Planning to return them. Eventually. His smile held no humor. Always best to return things to their rightful owners. With interest. As the morning sun climbed higher, burning off the mist, Eliza watched Wade organize supplies with military efficiency. He'd already recruited 2 of the town's younger men boys, really, eager for work and adventure, and set them to loading fence posts. You've done this before, she observed. Organized workers, I mean... He paused, something flickering in his gray eyes. Different life, he said finally. One that didn't suit me in the end. She wanted to probe further, but recognized the wall. Instead, she asked, "What do you need from me?" Trust. He met her gaze directly. Trust that I know what I'm doing. Trust that I'll earn my pay. And trust that when I say this ranch will survive the winter, I mean it. Standing there in the morning light, with the broken fences stretching endlessly before them and mountains of work ahead, Eliza made her choice. All right, Mr. Hollister Wade, you have 2 weeks to work a miracle. Miracles are for churches. He rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked by old scars. What we need is sweat, strategy, and a little luck. The first 2 I can provide, the third. He glanced at the horizon where storm clouds gathered. Well, we'll see what the territory provides. As he strode toward the work site, Eliza noticed a folded paper fall from his pocket. She retrieved it, meaning to call out, but the document's header stopped her cold. Wanted for questioning Railway Consortium fraud investigation. The rest was torn away, but she'd seen enough. Her mysterious drifter carried more secrets than trail dust. Yet, as she watched him direct the workers with calm authority, demonstrating the proper angle for post placement, she made a decision. She tucked the paper into her skirt pocket. Everyone deserved a chance to prove themselves through actions rather than past mistakes. Hadn't she learned that lesson personally? Wade Hollister had 2 weeks to save her ranch. Whatever he was running from would have to wait its turn. The dawn chorus of meadowlarks greeted Eliza as she stepped onto the porch, coffee cup warming her hands. 3 days had passed since Wade Hollister's arrival, and already the ranch hummed with purposeful activity. She watched him directing the morning's work, noting how he divided the fence line into manageable sections, each assigned to a specific team. Tommy, remember what I showed you about the angle? Wade called to one of the hired boys. If you set it perpendicular, first storm will knock it flat. Tommy Brennan, all of 16 and eager to prove himself, adjusted his grip on the post. Like this. Better. Now drive it deep. The earth's your friend if you treat her right. Eliza approached, her boots crunching on frost-brittle grass. You're teaching them more than fence building. Wade glanced up, a smile creasing his sun-weathered face. Skills travel lighter than gold and last longer, too. These boys might need the knowledge someday. Speaking of knowledge, she said, producing a small slate from her apron. I brought something for the lunch break. His eyebrows rose as she showed him mathematical equations. You're planning to school them. Why waste the opportunity? They're here. They're eager to learn. And practical mathematics makes more sense when you can apply it immediately. She pointed to the fence line, calculating angles, measuring distances, Determining how much wire we need for each section, it's all mathematics. Wade studied her with those gray eyes that seemed to see too much. Most teachers I knew stuck to their schoolhouses. Most teachers haven't had to fight for every student. She set the slate on a nearby stump. Out here, education is a luxury many can't afford. If I can slip in lessons while they work, perhaps some will see the value in formal schooling. Clever, he admitted. Though you might want to start with something simpler than trigonometry. She laughed, the sound surprising them both. You recognize trigonometry? A shadow crossed his features. Different life, he said, his now familiar deflection. But I take your point. Basic arithmetic first. As the morning progressed, Eliza found herself drawn repeatedly to the work site. Wade had established a rhythm post holes dug to precise depths, posts set with mathematical accuracy, bracing applied with an engineer's understanding of stress and load. When lunch arrived, brought by Maria in a basket that smelled of fresh tortillas, he gathered the workers for Eliza's impromptu lesson. All right, gentlemen, she began, noting how the boys straightened at being addressed so formally. Mr. Hollister has set posts every 8 feet. If our northern fence line is 200 feet long, how many posts do we need? Including corners and gates, Wade added, which require different calculations. Young Peter Watts, the banker's nephew who defied his family to take the job, raised his hand tentatively. 150 for the straight line, but we'd need maybe 6 extra for the corners. Excellent start. Now, if wire costs. The lesson was interrupted by approaching hoofbeats. 3 riders appeared on the rise, their silhouettes dark against the noon sky. Eliza recognized Ben Carter from the bank, flanked by 2 men she didn't know, rough sorts with the look of hired muscle. Miss Whitfield. Carter called, not bothering to dismount. Mr. Blackwood sent me to inspect the property, for the bank's records. You understand. The bank has no authority to inspect until foreclosure proceedings begin. Eliza replied evenly, which, by my calendar, is still 11 days away. Just being thorough. His smirk made her skin crawl. Interesting crew you've assembled. The Brennan boy, whose father drinks away his earnings, the Watts whelp, who'll be disinherited for this, and... His gaze settled on Wade, a drifter with no history and likely no future. Wade continued working, but Eliza noticed the subtle shift in his posture, the way his hand stayed near the hammer at his belt. These men are employed in honest labor, she said, which is more than I can say for bank clerks who ride with ruffians. One of the flanking riders growled, hand moving toward his sidearm, but Carter raised a hand. Now. We're all civilized here, just making observations. He turned his horse. Do give my regards to your father. I hear he's not improving. After they'd gone, Tommy Brennan spat in the dust. Sorry, Miss Eliza. He's right about my PA. Whole town knows he's a drunk. The whole town is wrong, she said firmly. Your father is a man struggling with demons. That's not the same as being defined by them, and you. She looked at each young man in turn. Are not your father's failures or your family's expectations. You are what you choose to build. Wade's quiet, well said, carried more weight than any elaborate praise. Work resumed with renewed intensity. By afternoon, they'd completed 50 yards of fence, each post true and firm. Wade had shown the boys how to string wire with the proper tension, not so tight it would snap in cold weather, not so loose animals could push through. There's an art to it, he explained, demonstrating the technique. Like tuning a fiddle, you want just enough give to handle nature's changes. You play fiddle? Peter asked. Wade's hand stilled momentarily. Used to. Haven't touched one in years. Eliza filed this information away with the growing list of Wade Hollister mysteries. An educated man who recognized trigonometry, who played fiddle, who organized workers with military precision yet worked for promises and room and board. As the sun began its western descent, she was tallying supplies when Maria approached, worry creasing her features. "Riders coming from town," the older woman said. "Many riders." Eliza's heart sank. Too early for Blackwood to move legally, but when had that stopped powerful men? Wade materialized beside her, having somehow heard despite being 50 yards away. "How many?" "7, maybe 8, Maria squinted. "But wait, that's Sheriff Morrison leading them." Relief flooded through Eliza as she recognized the sheriff's distinctive gray hat. The lawman rode up, tipping that hat politely. "Miss Whitfield, Mr. Hollister, sorry to interrupt the work, but we've had reports of rustlers hitting the smaller spreads. Lost 30 head from the Johnson place last night." "Our remaining cattle are secure." Wade said, "Move them to the south pasture, away from the road." Morrison nodded approvingly. "Smart thinking. Still, I'm organizing patrol groups, wondering if you'd spare a man or two for night watches." "We'll take our turn," Eliza said before Wade could respond. "This ranch has always done its part for the community." "Appreciated." The sheriff's gaze lingered on Wade. "Don't believe we've been properly introduced. Friend. Wade Hollister, just hired on for fence work." "Uh-huh." Morrison's tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. "Well, Mr. Hollister, you strike me as a man who knows his way around trouble. That could be useful, given current circumstances." After the sheriff departed, leaving a schedule of patrol assignments, Wade turned to Eliza. "You didn't have to volunteer. Your hands are full enough." "Community means mutual support," she replied. "Besides, if we help catch rustlers, it might reveal who's really behind our troubles." That evening, as purple shadows stretched across the range, an unexpected visitor arrived. Mr. Chen from town appeared at the gate, leading a mule loaded with supplies. "Miss Whitfield," he bowed slightly, his English carefully precise. "I bring contribution to fence project." Mr. Chen, that's very generous, but—" "Not charity," he interrupted gently. "Investment. Your school taught my daughter to read. Now she helps with business accounts. This is small repayment." Behind him, Eliza noticed, came his daughter Lily carrying a basket of food. The girl, perhaps 12, smiled shyly. "Mama sends dumplings," Lily said, her English more fluid than her father's. "She says workers need proper food for strength." As they unloaded the supplies, extra wire, nails, and tools, Wade engaged Mr. Chen in quiet conversation. Eliza caught fragments about wood treatment and preservation techniques, surprised again by the depth of Wade's knowledge. After the Chens departed, she found Wade examining the donated materials by lantern light. "Good quality," he observed. "Better than what we could afford. Your teaching seems to have made an impression." "Education is the only thing that's never been taken from me," she said quietly. "Everything else, security, reputation, trust, can be stripped away. But what we learn, what we know, that stays." He looked up sharply. "Speaking from experience?" She almost told him then. About Thomas, about the humiliation of being jilted, about the whispers that followed. Instead, she said, "We all have our stories. Mr. Hollister. Some of us just hide them better." "Wade," he corrected again. "And you're right. We do all have stories. Question is whether we let them define us or drive us." The next days blurred together in a rhythm of work and progress. Wade proved an exacting but fair taskmaster, pushing the crew hard while ensuring they understood the why behind each task. During lunch breaks, Eliza continued her lessons, gradually expanding from mathematics to basic literacy for those who needed it. One afternoon, as she helped Tommy work through a word problem, she noticed Wade had stopped working to listen. "The beauty of mathematics," she was saying, "is that it doesn't care who your father is or how much money you have. Numbers are honest. They don't lie or betray or abandon. They simply are." Unlike people, Tommy said, with a bitterness too heavy for his years. People are more complicated, she agreed. But that's what makes them interesting. A fence post is just wood and purpose. A person is dreams and fears and choices. Which would you rather be? Right now, the fence post, Tommy admitted, earning chuckles from the other workers. I'd rather be the wire. Peter offered, flexible enough to handle pressure, strong enough to hold the line. Wade spoke unexpectedly. I'd be the gate. They all turned to him. A barrier when needed, an opening when chosen, serving both purposes without losing its essential nature. The philosophical moment was broken by Maria's call to return to work, but Eliza pondered Wade's words. A gate indeed closed to some things, open to others, and she had yet to discover what determined which. That night, as she reviewed the week's progress, her father called her to his bedside. Samuel Whitfield's color had improved slightly, though he remained weak. "Tell me about this hired man," he said without preamble. Eliza described Wade's work, his organization of the crews, his teaching of the younger workers. But what about the man himself? She hesitated. He's complicated, educated but not pompous, skilled but not boastful. He carries secrets, but I believe his intentions are honorable. Her father studied her with eyes that missed little despite his illness. You trust him? I do, she realized with some surprise. I can't explain why, but I do. Your mother always said you had good instincts about people, even when that Hartley boy. He stopped at her flinch. I'm sorry, daughter. That was thoughtless. It's been 3 years. Papa, I'm not that naive girl anymore. No, he agreed. You're stronger, but don't let old wounds close you off to new possibilities. Before she could ask what he meant, footsteps on the porch interrupted. Wade appeared in the doorway, hat in hand. Sorry to disturb, but there's something you both should know. I've been walking the perimeter at night, watching for trouble. Tonight I found these. He produced a handful of objects, cigarette stubs, all the same brand. Turkish tobacco, expensive. Found them at 3 different fence cuts, all fresh. Blackwood smokes Turkish cigarettes, Samuel said quietly. So I'm told. Wade's expression remained neutral. Might be coincidence, might be someone wanting us to think it's him. Either way, someone's been watching the ranch, mapping our routines. What do you suggest? Eliza asked. Change the patterns, vary the watch times, and he hesitated. Arm the night guards. I won't have boys carrying guns, Eliza said firmly. Then I'll take the watches myself. You can't work all day and guard all night. His smile was grim. Wouldn't be the first time, but you're right. We need a better solution. Samuel struggled to sit up. The old Henry rifle, in the barn. Eliza knows how to use it. She can take a watch. Papa, no. Your mother could shoot the eye out of a hawk at 100 yards. Her father interrupted. She taught you well. Time to use it. Wade looked between them. No offense, Mr. Whitfield, but nothing. Eliza cut him off. I won't ask others to take risks I won't share. We'll establish a rotation. Everyone who's willing and able takes a turn. That night, she found herself walking the eastern boundary with the Henry rifle. Wade a silent shadow beside her. The moon was new, leaving only starlight to guide them. You don't have to escort me, she said. I'm perfectly capable. I know. His quiet certainty stopped her protest. But Blackwood's men don't play fair. 2 sets of eyes are better than 1. They walked in companionable silence. The night sounds of the prairie surrounding them, coyotes in the distance, the rustle of small creatures in the grass, the whisper of wind through the newly strung wire. Can I ask you something? She said eventually. You can ask. What are you running from? He was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, the man I was expected to be. And who was that? Someone who valued profit over people, who saw land as commodity, not community, who believed the strong should take from the weak because they could. He paused by a fence post, testing its stability. Turns out I had too much of my mother in me for that life. She sounds like a good woman. She died when I was 15, trying to help neighbors through a fever outbreak. My father called her foolish. Said she threw away her life for people who couldn't even pay for her care. You disagreed? I did, still do. We're all connected. Miss Whitfield Eliza. What hurts one hurts all. Eventually, your ranch fails. The school closes. The school closes. Children lose opportunities. Lost opportunities mean lost futures. He gestured to the fence line. It's all connected, like wire between posts. They'd reached the northern boundary, where the fence work showed most progress. In the starlight, the new posts stood like sentinels. Tomorrow we'll have 500 feet completed, he said. At this pace, we'll finish before Blackwood's deadline. Will that be enough? The fence. Yes, the larger fight. He turned to face her. That depends on how many people stand with you when the time comes. A sound in the darkness made them both freeze hoofbeats. Moving fast, Wade pushed her behind a large post, rifle ready. But the rider who appeared was Tommy Brennan, breathless with excitement. Miss Eliza, Mr. Wade's sheriff caught them the rustlers. They were hitting the Henderson place, but the patrol was ready. Who? Eliza demanded. 3 men, strangers. But Miss Eliza. Tommy's voice dropped. Peter heard his uncle talking. The men had bills of sale for the stolen cattle, forged but official looking, and the buyer's name on those papers. Blackwood, Wade finished. No, sir, that's just it. The name was Samuel Whitfield. Eliza's blood ran cold. What? They were going to frame your PA, make it look like he was stealing cattle to pay debts. Sheriff Morrison saw through it, but the damage to reputation would destroy us anyway. Eliza finished. No one would trust a rustler's daughter to teach their children. Wade's hand found her shoulder, steadying. Then we'd better make sure the truth comes out first. Tommy, ride back to town. Ask Sheriff Morrison to secure those papers as evidence. Tell him Miss Whitfield will be in to see him at first light. As the boy rode off, Eliza found herself trembling not from fear, but from rage. He's escalating, Wade observed. Getting desperate. That's both good and bad. How is any of this good? Desperate men make mistakes, and mistakes reveal truth. He checked the rifle's action with practiced ease. We should finish the patrol, then get you back. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. They completed their circuit in tense silence, finding no further signs of intrusion. As they approached the house, Wade spoke again. You asked what I'm running from. Fair question deserves a fair answer. There was fraud in the railway consortium I worked for back east. When I tried to expose it, they tried to frame me instead. I got away. But they have money and influence. Out here, I hope to find honest work and distance from their reach. And instead, you found another corrupt businessman threatening honest people. His laugh was humorless. Seems I have a talent for finding trouble. Or for finding me. You should know that before this goes further, my past could complicate your fight. She stopped at the porch steps, turning to face him in the dim light spilling from the windows. Mr. Hollister Wade. Everyone here carries some burden from their past. The question is, will you stand with us despite the risk? Yes. No hesitation, no qualification. Just that simple word, solid as a fence post. Then that's all I need to know. Inside, Maria waited with coffee and worried eyes. As Eliza recounted the night's events, the older woman crossed herself. This Blackwood. He shows his true face now. But Miss Eliza, if he's willing to frame your father for rustling, then he's willing to do worse. Eliza finished. I know, we need to be ready. She spent the remaining hours until dawn writing letters to the territorial governor, to the newspaper in Denver, to every person of influence her father had ever helped. If Blackwood wanted a fight, she'd give him one. He didn't expect the bright light of public scrutiny. As the first rays of sun touched the mountains, she found Wade already at work, directing the crews with his usual efficiency. But now she noticed the way his eyes constantly scanned the horizon, how he positioned the workers to have clear sight lines, how he'd moved the supply cache to a more defensible position. He was, she realized, preparing for war as much as building fence. "We'll win this," she said quietly, joining him at the work site. He glanced at her, noting the determination in her stance, the rifle she now carried openly. "Yes," he agreed. "We will, though winning and surviving aren't always the same thing. Then we'll do both." His rare, full smile transformed his weather-worn features. "Yes, Miss Eliza, I believe we will." The storm struck without warning on the 7th day, just as evening fell. Black clouds rolled over the mountains like an advancing army, bringing winds that screamed across the plateau and temperatures that plummeted 20 degrees in minutes. "Get the cattle to shelter!" Wade shouted over the howling wind. But Eliza was already moving, grabbing a lantern from the porch. "The new calves are in the north pasture," she called back. "They'll freeze if we don't bring them in." Wade caught her arm as she rushed past. "It's too dangerous. The temperature's dropping fast. And those calves are our future." She pulled free, eyes blazing with determination. "I'm going." He didn't waste time arguing. "Tommy, Peter, get ropes and extra lanterns. Maria, prepare the barn. We'll need blankets and warm mash ready." Within minutes, a small group headed into the growing darkness. The new fence posts stood firm against the wind, but the wire sang an eerie tune as gusts struck it. Ice was already forming on the metal, glittering in their lantern light like deadly diamonds. Eliza led the way. Having walked this land since childhood, even so, the familiar landscape became alien in the storm's fury. Snow began falling, not the gentle flakes of a normal autumn storm, but hard pellets driven horizontal by the wind. "There," Peter pointed through the swirling snow. The cattle huddled against a rock outcropping, the calves pressed between adult bodies for warmth. But one calf had wandered off, bawling pitifully near a wash that was rapidly filling with runoff. "I'll get it," Eliza said, but Wade was already moving. "Together," he said firmly. "Peter, you and Tommy start moving the herd. We'll catch up." They fought through the wind toward the stranded calf. The wash, dry that morning, now churned with muddy water carrying debris from higher ground. The calf stood on a rapidly shrinking island of earth, too frightened to attempt crossing. "We need to—" Eliza's words were cut off as the bank crumbled. The calf slid toward the torrent. Wade lunged forward, catching the animal just as it fell. For a moment, he teetered on the edge, the calf's weight pulling him toward the flood. Eliza grabbed his coat, hauling back with all her strength. Together they pulled the calf to safety. "You all right?" she gasped, still gripping his coat. "Thanks to you." He shifted the calf in his arms, its body shaking with cold and fear. "Let's get moving before we all freeze." The journey back seemed endless. Wade carried the calf while Eliza held the lantern high, fighting to see through the snow. Behind them, Tommy and Peter drove the small herd, their young voices cracking as they called encouragement to the animals. By the time they reached the barn, ice coated everyone's clothing. Maria waited with warm blankets and the promised mash, clucking over them like a mother hen. "You're bleeding," she said sharply, pointing to Wade's temple. He touched the cut, seeming surprised. "Must have happened at the wash." "It's nothing." "Sit," Maria commanded. Heroes who say, "it's nothing," usually fall over 5 minutes later. While Maria tended Wade's injury, Eliza checked the calves. All had survived, though the one Wade rescued needed extra attention. She rubbed its limbs to restore circulation, crooning softly. "You have a way with them," Wade observed, wincing as Maria cleaned his cut. "My mother taught me," She said animals respond to confidence and calm, just like people. Eliza glanced at him. That was brave. What you did. That was necessary. Brave would have been doing it without you there to pull me back. Tommy burst through the barn door. Mr. Wade, Miss Eliza Ryder's coming. Looks like trouble. Wade was on his feet instantly. Maria's protests ignored. Through the barn's open door, they could see torches approaching a dozen riders fighting through the storm. Tommy, Peter, get to the house. Protect Mr. Whitfield, Wade ordered. Maria, you too. I'm staying, Eliza said. So am I, Maria added, producing an ancient shotgun from behind the feed bins. This is my home too. The riders pulled up just outside the barn, their torches hissing in the snow. Ben Carter led them, trying to look authoritative despite being obviously miserable in the weather. Miss Whitfield, he called. Mr. Blackwood sent us to check on your welfare in this storm. How considerate, Eliza replied dryly, especially since you brought so many armed men for a welfare check. These are dangerous times, rustlers about and all. Carter's smile was as cold as the wind. We noticed your new fences. Impressive work for such a small crew. What do you want? Carter. Wade stepped forward, hand resting casually on his holstered pistol. Just neighborly concern. Though Mr. Blackwood did mention he'd be willing to shelter your cattle at his ranch for a fee. Of course, can't have valuable stock freezing because of, he paused meaningfully. Inadequate facilities. Our facilities are fine, Eliza said. As you can see, the cattle are safe and warm. For now. Carter's gaze swept the barn. But winter's coming early this year. Might be a hard season for folks stretched too thin. One of his riders leaned forward, and Eliza recognized him. Jack Thornton, a hired gun who drifted into the territory recently. Shame if something happened to these new fences in the storm. Wind can do terrible damage to fresh work. The threat hung in the air like ice crystals. Wade shifted slightly, putting himself between Eliza and the riders. Yes, wind can be destructive, he said conversationally. Almost as destructive as men who cut fences in the night. Of course, smart men know that destruction works both ways. Mr. Blackwood has fences too, barns, houses, all vulnerable to wind. The casual menace in his tone made several riders shift nervously. Carter's face flushed. Are you threatening Mr. Blackwood? Simply observing natural phenomena. Wade's smile was sharp as winter wind. Just as you are. For a long moment, they faced each other through the swirling snow. Then Carter wheeled his horse around. Remember, Mr. Blackwood's offer. Miss Whitfield, it won't remain open forever. After they'd gone, Eliza found herself trembling not from cold, but from anger. They mean to destroy the new fences tonight, she said. Let them try. Wade checked his pistol, then looked at her. Can you and Maria hold the barn? I need to check something. Before she could answer, he vanished into the storm. Maria touched her shoulder. That one moves like a ghost when he chooses. Whatever he's planning, he knows his business. They didn't have long to wait. Within an hour, shouts erupted from the direction of the north pasture. Gunshots cracked through the storm's howl. Eliza started for the door, but Maria held her back. Wait, trust him. The minutes crawled by. Then Wade appeared, materializing from the snow like a spirit. Behind him came Sheriff Morrison and 6 deputies, escorting 3 men with hands bound, including Jack Thornton. Caught them cutting fence, the sheriff said, shaking snow from his coat. Mr. Hollister here sent word about possible trouble, so we were ready. How did you? Eliza began. I've been expecting this move, Wade said simply. When I saw Carter's riders, I knew they'd strike tonight under cover of the storm. The sheriff was already positioned. Morrison nodded. These boys were carrying some interesting items. Wire cutters, obviously. But also these. He produced several sticks of dynamite. Seems they planned to do more than cut fence. Eliza's blood ran cold. They meant to destroy the barn, with the cattle inside. And anyone who happened to be guarding it, Wade added quietly. That's attempted murder, Morrison said. Combined with the rustling evidence, Mr. Blackwood has serious questions to answer. As the sheriff led the prisoners away, Eliza turned to Wade. You knew. You were ready for them. I've seen this pattern before. When legal means fail, men like Blackwood turn to violence. The storm provided perfect cover, or would have, if we hadn't been watching. She studied him in the lantern light, this mysterious man who anticipated trouble with such precision. Just what did you do in your previous life? Protected things that mattered, he said after a pause. Just not always the right things. The storm began to ease as they secured the barn for the night. The rescued calf, now warm and fed, slept peacefully in fresh straw. The other cattle settled, safe from both weather and human predators. I should check on Father, Eliza said, exhaustion suddenly weighing on her. I'll walk you back. They trudged through knee-deep snow, the wind finally dying to occasional gusts. At the house, warm light spilled from windows, and Tommy Brennan met them at the door. Mr. Whitfield's been asking for you, Miss Eliza. He heard the commotion. She found her father propped up in bed, color better than it had been in days. His eyes sharpened as she entered, taking in her snow-covered clothes and wind-burned cheeks. Tell me, he said simply. She recounted the night's events, the rescue, the confrontation, the arrests. His expression grew grimmer with each detail. Blackwood showing his true colors, he said when she finished. But this won't stop him. He'll claim ignorance, say those men acted without his knowledge. Probably, Eliza agreed. But Sheriff Morrison has evidence linking the rustled cattle to forged bills of sale, combined with tonight's arrests. Blackwood's reputation is crumbling. Reputation? Her father smiled thinly. In a place like this, that's almost as valuable as water rights. His gaze found Wade standing in the doorway. Mr. Hollister, I owe you thanks. You owe me nothing. I'm paid to protect this ranch. No, Samuel Whitfield said firmly. You're paid to fix fences. Everything else that comes from character. He studied Wade with eyes that had judged many men over the years. My daughter trusts you. That's recommendation enough for me. Later, after her father had settled back to sleep, Eliza found Wade in the kitchen, Maria fussing over him with coffee and food. You need rest, Maria scolded. Heroes require sleep, just like normal people. In a bit. He looked at Eliza. How's your father? Better. I think having something to fight for strengthens him. She sat across from him, accepting Maria's offer of coffee. Wade, what you did tonight was my job. No. She met his eyes steadily. It wasn't. You could have let them destroy the fences, collected your pay for the work already done, and moved on. Instead, you risked exposure, possibly arrest if your past catches up. Why? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. You know what I saw that first day in the saloon, a woman who walked into a room full of men who judge her, mock her, dismiss her, and she did it anyway because it was necessary. That kind of courage is rare. That wasn't courage. That was desperation. No. His certainty surprised her. Desperate people beg. You demanded fair work for fair wages. You stood straight despite their sneers. That's not desperation, that's steel. Maria busied herself at the stove, but Eliza caught her small smile. My past may still cause problems. Wade continued. The men I ran from have long reaches. Then we'll face that when it comes. Eliza heard herself echoing his earlier words. Together. Something shifted in his expression, a softening, perhaps, or a recognition. But before either could say more, Peter burst in. "The storm's passed, but we've got new problems. Half the town's fences are down, and old Mr. Henderson lost most of his barn roof. People are gathering at the church to organize repairs." Eliza stood immediately. "We should help." "You should rest," Wade countered. "You've been up all night." "So have you. And this is what communities do, they help each other rebuild." By dawn, Silver Creek had transformed into a hive of activity. The storm's damage was extensive but not devastating, and townspeople worked together with the efficiency of long practice. Eliza organized food distribution while Wade led repair crews. She noticed how naturally people followed his directions, how he assessed damage and allocated resources with an expert eye. Whatever he'd been in his former life, leadership had been part of it. "Your man knows his business," Sheriff Morrison observed, joining her at the makeshift food station. "He's not my—" She stopped, flustered. "He's a hired hand." Morrison's smile suggested he wasn't fooled. "Sure he is. Just like you're just a school teacher. Some folks are more than their titles. Miss Eliza." As the day progressed, an unexpected thing happened. The shared adversity of the storm began to shift opinions. People who'd whispered about the desperate Whitfield girl now saw her distributing food and supplies without regard for past slights. Men who dismissed Wade as a drifter watched him shore up buildings and organize repairs with skill and generosity. Even some of Blackwood's supporters seemed uncomfortable when the banker appeared mid-morning, immaculate despite the chaos, offering loans for storm repairs at competitive rates. "Vulture," someone muttered, loud enough to carry. Blackwood's smile never wavered, but Eliza saw the tightness around his eyes. His carefully constructed image of benevolent authority was cracking. By evening, the worst damage had been addressed. As people began dispersing, many stopped to thank Eliza and Wade personally. "Mr. Chen pressed a small carved jade pendant into Eliza's hand. "For protection." Tommy Brennan's father, sober for once, shook Wade's hand with tears in his eyes, mumbling about good people and second chances. Walking back to the ranch as stars emerged in the clear post-storm sky, Eliza felt something had fundamentally changed. "We're winning," she said quietly. "The first skirmish," Wade agreed. "But yes, the tide's turning." They found the ranch peaceful, the new fences standing firm despite the storm's fury. The cattle were settled, the barn warm and secure. It felt, Eliza realized, like home again, not just a place to defend, but a place to build from. "I never thanked you," she said as they reached the porch. "For the calf. For everything." "No thanks needed." "Yes," she insisted. You could have let that calf drown. Some men would have called it acceptable loss." "I'm not some men." He paused at the bottom of the steps, looking up at her. "That calf matters because the ranch matters. The ranch matters because you matter. It's not complicated." In the moonlight, she could see the exhaustion lining his face. The cut on his temple Maria had bandaged, the snow still melting in his dark hair. This man who'd appeared from nowhere, who carried secrets and skills in equal measure, who fought for her ranch as if it were his own. "Wade," she began, not sure what she meant to say. But Maria appeared in the doorway. "Inside, both of you. Hot food waiting, and no arguments." The moment passed, but something lingered, a possibility. Perhaps, or a promise. As they entered the warm kitchen, Eliza caught Wade's slight smile and felt an answering warmth that had nothing to do with the stove's heat. Outside, the night was crisp and clear, the storm's violence already becoming memory, but its effects remained in strengthened fences, in shifted alliances, in connections forged through shared struggle. The battle for Whitfield Ranch was far from over, but tonight, warm and safe, while enemies regrouped and friends multiplied, victory seemed not just possible, but inevitable. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Blackwood wouldn't accept defeat easily. and Wade's past remained a shadow on the horizon. But tonight, Eliza thought as she watched him accept Maria's fussing with amused patience. Tonight they were winning, and that was enough. The fire crackled low in the hearth as Wade stared into the flames, his coffee growing cold in his hands. 3 days had passed since the storm. 3 days of relative peace that felt like the held breath before a scream. Eliza found him there at dawn, already dressed for work despite the early hour. "Couldn't sleep either," she asked, pouring herself coffee from the pot on the stove. "Old habits." He shifted to make room as she sat beside him on the worn bench. "Your father's improving." "Maria says he took several steps yesterday. The doctor thinks he might recover full mobility." She paused, studying his profile in the firelight. "Wade, we need to talk about what comes next." He set down his cup carefully. "Blackwood won't stay quiet much longer. The arrests bought us time, but—" "Not about Blackwood. About you." The silence stretched between them, filled only by the fire's whisper and the distant lowing of cattle. "Finally," Wade spoke. "You found the wanted notice." It wasn't a question. Eliza retrieved the torn paper from her pocket, smoothing it on the rough table. "Days ago. I've been waiting for you to tell me." He laughed, short and bitter. "And here I thought I'd gotten better at reading people." You knew I wouldn't use it against you." She leaned forward. "But I need to know the truth. Not for judgment, for preparation. If your past arrives on our doorstep, we need to be ready." Wade stood abruptly, pacing to the window where dawn was breaking over the mountains. "My real name is Wade Holbrook. Hollister was my mother's maiden name." He pressed a hand against the glass. "I was junior partner in the Eastern Railway Consortium, brought in to manage land acquisitions for new rail lines." "Go on." "At first, it was straightforward. Fair prices for right-of-way, compensation for displaced families. Then the senior partners got greedy. They wanted the land cheaper, faster. When farmers refused to sell, accidents started happening. Wells poisoned, barns burned. Stock disappeared." Eliza's hands tightened on her cup. The tactics sounded painfully familiar. "I tried to stop it, gathered evidence, prepared to go to the authorities, but they were ahead of me." His voice went flat. "They framed me for embezzlement, made it look like I'd stolen the money meant for land purchases. By the time I realized what was happening, there were warrants, hired guns, nowhere safe to turn." "So you ran." "So I ran." He turned from the window. "Been running for 2 years, working ranches, keeping my head down, moving on before anyone could dig too deep. Until you walked into a saloon and found a stubborn schoolteacher refusing to beg." His smile was rueful. "Something like that." Eliza stood, crossing to stand before him. "Thank you for telling me." "You're not asking if I'm guilty of what they claim." "I don't need to. I've watched you work. I've seen how you treat people with respect, regardless of their station. A man who truly valued money above all else wouldn't risk everything to save a calf in a storm." "Eliza, we need allies." She moved to her father's desk, pulling out paper and ink. "You said you gathered evidence. Do you still have it?" "Some hidden in various places between here and Chicago. But retrieving it would mean exposure, and the men I'm running from have names, addresses, enemies of their own. I'd wager." She began writing rapidly. "My father has connections in Denver, even some in Washington. Railroad corruption is a federal matter. If we can prove your innocence while exposing their crimes, you'd risk your ranch for this." She looked up, meeting his eyes steadily. "I'm risking my ranch anyway, at least this way. We're fighting on multiple fronts." She paused, then added quietly, "Besides, you risked exposure for us. How can I do less?" Before Wade could respond, Maria burst through the door. "Ryder's coming! The sheriff! And he's not alone!" They hurried to the porch where Sheriff Morrison was dismounting, accompanied by a well-dressed stranger whose Eastern clothing marked him as clearly as a brand. Miss Whitfield, Mr. Hollister. Morrison nodded. This is Mr. James Patterson from the Territorial Governor's Office. He's come about the recent incidents. Patterson stepped forward, keen eyes taking in every detail. Miss Whitfield, I've been instructed to investigate claims of banking fraud and organized criminal activity in this region. Your letters reach the right hands. I'm grateful for your attention, Mr. Patterson, Eliza replied carefully. Don't be grateful yet. His gaze shifted to Wade. Mr. Hollister, or should I say, Mr. Holbrook, your presence complicates matters considerably. Wade stiffened, but didn't deny the name. Morrison's hand moved to his pistol. Now, Sheriff. Patterson raised a hand. I'm not here to execute warrants. In fact, Mr. Holbrook, I have a proposition. But perhaps we should discuss this inside. Soon they were gathered around the kitchen table, Maria hovering with coffee while Patterson laid out documents with precise movements. The governor has been watching Barnaby Blackwood for some time. Patterson began. His banking practices have raised questions, but he's clever. We need solid evidence of criminal activity. The rustling connection, Morrison started, claims he knew nothing about it. The men arrested refused to implicate him directly. Patterson's smile was sharp. However, Mr. Holbrook here presents an interesting opportunity. I'm listening, Wade said carefully. The Eastern Railway Consortium you fled from, they've extended operations westward. 3 guesses who their new territorial banking partner is. Blackwood? Eliza breathed the name like a curse. Indeed. If Mr. Holbrook could provide evidence linking your local corruption to the larger conspiracy, well, the governor would be very interested. Interested enough to perhaps re-examine those embezzlement charges with a more sympathetic eye. You want me to turn state's evidence, Wade said flatly. I want you to tell the truth, Patterson corrected. The complete truth, with documentation. In exchange, you get federal protection and a chance to clear your name. And if I refuse, Patterson shrugged. Then I leave you to your fence building and hope those warrants don't catch up. But Miss Whitfield should know that without federal intervention, Blackwood will likely prevail. He has resources, connections, and patience. Wade, Eliza said quietly. This is your decision, but remember we're stronger together than alone. Wade studied the documents, then looked at each face around the table. Finally, he nodded. What do you need? The next hours were a blur of planning. Wade sketched maps showing where he'd hidden evidence. Patterson took detailed notes, and Sheriff Morrison coordinated security measures. Through it all, Eliza felt the shift from desperate defense to coordinated offensive. The key documents are in a safety deposit box in Denver, Wade explained. Under the name William Holden, I'll need to retrieve them personally. The bank will require identification. Too dangerous, Morrison objected. Blackwood surely has watchers in Denver. Then we make it look like something else. Eliza had been thinking rapidly. The cattle auction is next week. I could go to Denver for that. Take Wade as my foreman. It would seem natural. Absolutely not, Wade said immediately. I won't put you in that danger. I'm already in danger, at least this way. We're taking action instead of waiting for the next attack. Patterson nodded approvingly. Smart. I can provide discreet protection. Make sure you're not followed. This is madness, Maria interjected. 2 young people, traveling alone. Then you'll come as chaperone, Eliza said. We'll make it a proper business trip. The planning continued until noon. When unexpected visitors arrived, a delegation of townspeople led by Mr. Chen and, surprisingly, Judge Harper from the county seat. Miss Whitfield, the judge began formally. We've come on a matter of community interest. Please Come in. Eliza ushered them to the parlor, wondering at this gathering. I'll be direct. Judge Harper continued once seated. Blackwood's actions have concerned many of us for some time. Your recent stand has given others courage to speak up. We're forming a citizens committee to investigate banking practices and support those who've been wronged. My daughter keeps books for many businesses, Mr. Chen added. She's found patterns. Loans called in early. Interest rates changed without notice. Property seized on technicalities. We want you to know, Judge Harper said firmly, that you're not alone in this fight. The law may be slow, but justice has a way of prevailing when good people stand together. After they left, pledging various forms of support, Wade found Eliza on the porch watching the sunset. You've changed things, he said quietly. This was a town of people keeping their heads down, afraid to challenge power. Now they're organizing. We changed things, she corrected. Your courage in staying. In fighting, that matters too. I'm not sure courage is the right word for what I've done. What would you call it then? He considered. Finding something worth standing still for. The next morning brought a new crisis. Tommy Brennan arrived at dawn, breathless from hard riding. Miss Eliza. It's Peter, his uncle threw him out. Says he won't harbor a traitor to his employer. Peter's at my place, but Pa's drinking again and... Bring him here, Eliza said immediately. He can stay in the bunkhouse. But what about his family, his education? His education continues. As for family, she looked at Wade, Maria, even Tommy himself. Sometimes we make our own. By the time Peter arrived, clutching a small bundle of possessions, Eliza had already set plans in motion. The boy would work mornings, attend lessons afternoons, and have a safe place to sleep. I can pay my way, Peter said stiffly, pride warring with gratitude. Of course you will, Wade agreed seriously. Man needs to earn his keep, but you'll also finish your schooling. Education's not optional here. Watching Wade teach Peter the proper way to splice wire that afternoon, Eliza felt something ease in her chest. This was what building looked like, not just fences, but futures. That evening, as they finalized plans for the Denver trip, her father called them to his bedside. Samuel Whitfield looked stronger, fire returning to his eyes. I've been thinking, he said without preamble. Wade, what would it take to make you a full partner in this ranch? The room went still. Wade's face showed rare surprise. Mr. Whitfield, I appreciate the offer, but nothing. You've bled for this land. You've brought innovations that water management system alone will double our capacity. More than that, you've given my daughter something I thought she'd lost. Father, Eliza protested, heat rising in her cheeks. Hope, her father finished firmly. You've given her hope, given us all hope. So I ask again, what would it take? Wade looked at Eliza, something passing between them in that glance. Clear my name first, then we'll discuss the future. Fair enough. Samuel smiled. But know this when you get back from Denver, successful or not. There's a place here for you. A permanent place, if you want it. Late that night, Eliza found herself unable to sleep. She walked out to check the horses, finding Wade already there, brushing his mount with careful strokes. Second thoughts, she asked. Third and fourth thoughts. He didn't look up. Eliza, if this goes wrong, then we face it together. She took a curry comb, starting on the next horse. You know what I realized today when Peter arrived with nothing but the clothes on his back? What? That's how you arrived too. And look what you've built since then. Not just fences, connections, trust, a place in this community. She paused in her brushing. That's what Blackwood doesn't understand. He thinks power comes from money and fear, but real power that comes from people choosing to stand together. Philosophy from a school teacher. Observation from a rancher's daughter. She smiled, Though I suppose I'm becoming more rancher than teacher these days. No. Wade finally looked at her. You're both. That's what makes you dangerous to men like Blackwood. You can fight him on multiple fronts: education, community building, legal challenges. He's used to opponents who play by his rules. And you, what rules do you play by? Still figuring that out? He set aside the brush. For a long time, I played by no rules, just survived. Then I met a woman who walked into a saloon full of hostile men because it was the right thing to do. Made me reconsider. I was terrified that day. But you did it anyway. That's the definition of courage. They stood close in the lantern-lit stable, horses shifting peacefully around them. The moment stretched, full of possibility. Wade, Eliza began. We should get some sleep, he said quickly, stepping back. Long ride tomorrow. She accepted the retreat, recognizing his need for boundaries, but as they walked back to the house, she allowed her hand to brush his. Just once. His fingers caught hers briefly, a squeeze of acknowledgement and promise, before letting go. Tomorrow would bring the journey to Denver, with all its dangers and possibilities, but tonight, under stars that witnessed their growing connection, Eliza felt ready for whatever came next. The ranch slept peacefully, new fences standing guard, while inside, two people prepared for a battle that would determine not just the fate of land and cattle, but of futures and freedoms hard-won. Change was coming to Silver Creek, carried on the wings of courage and community, and at its heart stood a schoolteacher and a mysterious drifter, learning that sometimes the greatest risk was not in fighting for what you had, but in daring to hope for what could be. The market square in Silver Creek bustled with activity as ranchers, farmers, and townspeople gathered for the monthly trading day. Eliza stood beside their wagon, watching Wade negotiate with a buyer for their surplus hay. His easy manner with the locals had grown over the past weeks, but she noticed how his eyes constantly scanned the crowd, alert for danger. Fine quality hay, Hollister, the buyer was saying. Your water management's paying off already. Miss Whitfield's planning deserves the credit, Wade replied, but Eliza caught the pleased look he tried to hide. Their business concluded. They moved through the crowd toward the Grand Hotel where Blackwood had called a public meeting. The banker had been unusually quiet since the storm, and this sudden civic gesture made everyone wary. Stay close, Wade murmured as they entered the packed hotel dining room. Blackwood stood at the front, immaculate as always, his smile benevolent as he surveyed the gathered townspeople. Friends, neighbors, thank you for coming. I've called this meeting to address recent misunderstandings. That's one word for it, someone muttered, earning nervous chuckles. I realize there have been concerns about banking practices, Blackwood continued smoothly. Baseless rumors, spread by those who would undermine our community's prosperity. Today, I want to offer transparency. He produced a leather folder with theatrical flair. Here are the bank's books, available for public inspection. You'll find every loan properly documented, every foreclosure legally justified. Unlike some, his gaze found Eliza. I have nothing to hide. Then you won't mind explaining these. Wade stepped forward. Producing documents of his own, Eliza recognized them copies Mr. Chen's daughter had made from various business ledgers around town. Interesting patterns here. Mr. Blackwood. Loans called in early, always just before harvest or cattle sales when folks are cash poor. Interest rates that somehow increase between signing and first payment. Clerical errors that always favor the bank. Blackwood's smile tightened. You're hardly qualified to interpret financial documents, Mr. Hollister, a drifter playing at mathematics. Actually, Wade said mildly, I have extensive experience with financial documents, railroad contracts, specifically, complex instruments designed to confuse and entrap, much like these. The crowd stirred. Judge Harper stood from his seat. I'd like to examine both sets of books, if you don't mind. Of course. Blackwood's confidence never wavered. Though I must point out that Mr. Hollister is hardly an unbiased observer. A man who romances his employer for personal gain can hardly claim moral authority. The insult hung in the air like smoke. Eliza felt heat rise in her cheeks. But before she could respond, Wade laughed a genuine sound that seemed to surprise everyone, including Blackwood. "You're right," Wade said easily. "I do have personal interests here. I'm personally interested in honest dealing. Personally interested in seeing families keep their homes. And yes," he glanced at Eliza with a smile that made her heart skip. "Personally interested in my employer, though I'd point out she hired me for fencing, not financing. Any other developments are entirely separate from business arrangements." "How touching," Blackwood sneered. The drifter and the spinster, finding love among the ledgers. "Careful, Blackwood." Sheriff Morrison stood slowly. "You're treading on dangerous ground." "Am I? I'm simply pointing out facts. Miss Whitfield, already once rejected, desperate enough to hire any man who'd have her—" The crack of Eliza's palm against Blackwood's cheek echoed through the room. The banker staggered, more from shock than force, his hand rising to his reddening face. "You dare!" "I dare quite a lot. Mr. Blackwood." Eliza's voice carried the same authority she used in her classroom. "I dare to stand up to bullies. I dare to fight for my home. And I dare to choose my own path, regardless of small-minded gossips." "Here, here, missus!" Henderson called out, starting applause that rippled through the room. Blackwood's composure finally cracked. "You'll regret this, all of you. When winter comes and you need loans for supplies. When spring planting requires seed money." "Actually," a new voice interrupted from the doorway, "they'll have options." Everyone turned to see a distinguished gentleman enter, accompanied by two younger men carrying document cases, and Mr. Franklin Morse. The man introduced himself. "Territorial Bank of Denver. We've been looking to establish a branch in Silver Creek, and recent events have convinced us the time is right." Blackwood went pale. "This is my territory. Banking is not a territorial right, Mr. Blackwood. It's a service, one that should be provided honestly and fairly." Morse nodded to Eliza. Miss Whitfield's letters were quite persuasive, as were the supporting documents from concerned citizens. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Townspeople surrounded Morse with questions while Blackwood retreated, his supporters melting away. Wade guided Eliza outside where they could breathe. "Your hand all right?" he asked, gently examining her palm. "Worth it." She flexed her fingers. "Though I probably shouldn't have lost my temper." "I don't know. I think you tempered it just right." His thumb traced her palm lightly. "Remind me not to make you angry." "Wade." She stopped as Tommy Brennan ran up. "Miss Eliza, Mr. Wade, come quick, there's trouble at the Chen's store." They found smoke pouring from the back of the building. A bucket brigade was already forming, but Wade immediately took charge. "Tommy, Peter, get those water barrels from the livery. Mrs. Chen, is everyone out?" "Yes, but our ledgers Lily was copying." Without hesitation, Wade plunged into the smoke. Eliza grabbed a bucket, joining the line while her heart hammered with fear. Long moments passed before he emerged, coughing but clutching a box of documents. "Just smoke damage," he reported between coughs. "Fire was set in the storeroom but didn't spread far." Set Sheriff Morrison appeared, notepad ready. Wade showed him a bottle. Kerosene, deliberately poured and lit. Amateur job, though they didn't account for the stone walls containing it. "My records," Mr. Chen said quietly. "The ones documenting irregular bank practices. Someone wanted them destroyed." "Three guesses who," Morrison muttered. As the crowd worked to clear the smoke and assess damage, Patterson appeared at Eliza's elbow. "Convenient timing for a fire, wouldn't you say?" "Blackwood's getting desperate." "Desperate men make mistakes." but they're also dangerous. Are you still planning the Denver trip? More than ever. That evening, the Whitfield Ranch kitchen became an impromptu war council. Sheriff Morrison, Patterson, Judge Harper, and several leading citizens crowded around the table while Maria served coffee and her famous empanadas. With Morse establishing a competing bank, Blackwood's lost his stranglehold. Judge Harper summarized, "But he still has resources and connections. And he's shown he'll use violence." Morrison added, "The fire was a warning." "Then we move faster," Eliza said. "Wade and I leave for Denver tomorrow as planned. Maria will accompany us for propriety. We'll return with the evidence to clear Wade's name and expose the railroad connection. I'll provide discreet escort," Patterson promised. "Federal marshals, in civilian clothes, and I'll keep watch here." Morrison nodded. "Make sure Blackwood doesn't try anything while you're gone." As the meeting broke up, Samuel Whitfield called Wade aside. Eliza watched them talk quietly, her father's hand on Wade's shoulder in a gesture of paternal approval that made her throat tight. "What did he say?" she asked later as Wade walked her to the house. "He gave me his blessing. Said if I was riding into danger with his daughter, I'd better be prepared to make it right when we return." Make what right? Wade stopped at the porch steps, turning to face her in the moonlight. "Us, this, whatever we're becoming." "And what are we becoming? I used to think I knew now." He reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Now I just know I want the chance to find out." "Wade, after Denver," he said softly. "After we've faced this down and cleared the path, then we'll talk about futures." She wanted to protest that the future was now. Every moment they stood here not kissing was a moment wasted. But she understood his honor, his need to come to her free of shadows. "After Denver," she agreed. The next morning dawned clear and cold. Their small party, Eliza, Wade, Maria, and 2 pack horses set out early, though half the town turned out to see them off. Peter and Tommy would help Samuel manage the ranch, with Morrison checking daily. "Bring back the truth." Judge Harper called, "Bring back yourselves safely," Mrs. Henderson added, pressing a basket of food into Maria's hands. As they rode out, Eliza looked back once at the ranch, at the new fences standing strong, at the people who'd become family. Then she faced forward, toward Denver and whatever awaited them there. "Regrets?" Wade asked, riding beside her. "None. Only that I didn't meet you sooner." "You met me exactly when we needed each other," she said firmly. "That's what matters." They made good time. Reaching the halfway point by sunset, the inn Patterson had recommended was clean and respectable, the innkeeper expecting them. "Your rooms are ready," he said, then lowered his voice. "Your friends arrived an hour ago. They're in the bar, playing cards." "The federal marshals?" Eliza realized. Wade nodded understanding. After dinner, Maria retired early, pointedly reminding them about propriety. Eliza and Wade sat by the inn's fireplace, talking quietly about everything except what lay ahead. "Tell me about your mother," Eliza asked. "You said she died helping neighbors. Scarlet fever outbreak? She was the only one in town who'd had it as a child, so she was immune." Wade stared into the fire. "Nursed a dozen families through it. Wore herself out. Caught pneumonia. My father never forgave her for choosing strangers over her own health. But you understood. I was angry at first, 15 and motherless. I wanted someone to blame." He smiled sadly. "Then I saw the families she'd saved at her funeral. Children who wouldn't have survived without her. How could I stay angry at that?" "She sounds remarkable." "She would have liked you. A woman who walks into saloons and slaps bankers." His smile turned genuine. "She'd have adopted you on the spot." They talked until the fire burned low, sharing stories and silences equally. Finally, Wade stood. "We should rest. Tomorrow's the real test." At her door, he paused. "Eliza, if something goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, promise me you'll get to safety. Don't try to be heroic for my sake." She reached up, touching his cheek. "I can't promise that, any more than you could promise to abandon me if our positions were reversed." He caught her hand, pressing it against his face. "Stubborn woman. Complicated man." For a moment they stood frozen, the hallway dim and intimate around them. Then Wade stepped back, his expression a mix of longing and determination. "Good night, Eliza." "Good night, Wade." She entered her room but stood at the window, watching the stars and thinking about tomorrow. In Denver waited answers. Evidence, perhaps redemption, but also danger, exposure, the possibility of losing everything they'd built. Yet she felt no fear, only anticipation. Whatever came, they'd face it together. A teacher and a drifter who'd found something worth fighting for in each other in the community they'd helped forge. Tomorrow would bring challenges, but tonight, with Wade just doors away and Maria snoring peacefully in the adjoining room, Eliza felt ready for anything. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent to human struggles, but she found comfort in their constancy. Some things endured truth, courage, love growing despite obstacles. Denver could wait. For now. She had this moment of peace before the storm, this quiet certainty that whatever happened, they'd already won something precious, the knowledge that neither of them stood alone. The journey back from Denver had been fraught with tension, though they'd successfully retrieved the evidence. Now, as sunset painted the ranch in golden hues, Wade hammered the last post of the final fence section into place. 3 weeks of relentless work had transformed the property. New fences stood straight and true. Water channels ran clear, and the cattle grazed peacefully in well-organized pastures. "That's the last of it," Peter called out, coiling excess wire. Wade stepped back, surveying their accomplishment with satisfaction. Every post, every strand of wire represented not just physical labor but a promise kept. Tomorrow, they would face Blackwood in court. Tonight, the ranch stood ready for whatever came. "You've done it," Eliza said softly, approaching with a water bucket. "Everything you promised." "We've done it," he corrected, accepting the ladle gratefully. "None of this would have mattered without you believing it could happen." She watched him drink, noting the new lines around his eyes from weeks of sun and worry. The evidence they'd retrieved in Denver had proven even more damning than expected documents linking Blackwood directly to the Railroad Consortium's land grab schemes. But until the judge ruled tomorrow, nothing was certain. "Wade, I need to talk to you, alone." He set down the ladle, reading something in her expression. "Peter, Tommy, excellent work today. Head back to the house. Maria's got supper waiting." The boys departed with knowing grins that Eliza pretended not to notice. Once alone, she found herself suddenly nervous, the speech she'd rehearsed evaporating like morning dew. "The court date tomorrow," she began. "We'll be ready. Patterson has the federal marshals positioned, and Judge Harper seems sympathetic to our cause." "That's not what I mean." She took a breath. "Win or lose tomorrow, things will change. If we win, you'll be free to go anywhere, be anyone. If we lose, I'll still be here." His voice was firm. "I told you before, I'm done running. But you shouldn't have to tie yourself to a failing ranch, to a woman with more debts than prospects." Wade moved closer, his hands gently gripping her shoulders. "Eliza Whitfield, you are the smartest woman I know, but sometimes you think too much." "I'm trying to be practical." "Be honest instead. Tell me what you really want to say." She looked up into his weathered face, seeing past the mysterious drifter to the man who'd bled for her land, who'd taught mathematics to ranch boys, who'd stood between her and every threat without hesitation. "I love you," she said simply. "I've loved you since you carried that half-frozen calf through a blizzard. Maybe even since you walked into that saloon and said, "I'll take it," without knowing what you were really taking on. His hands moved to cup her face, thumbs brushing her cheeks with infinite tenderness. And I've loved you since you faced down a room full of men who thought you were less than them. Since you insisted on teaching fence post mathematics. Since you slapped Blackwood for insulting your honor. Wade, let me finish. You asked what I'd be if I could choose. I said a gate closed to some things, open to others. I know now what I want to be open to. A life here, with you, building something that matters. Even if we lose everything tomorrow. We won't lose each other. Everything else can be rebuilt. She rose on her toes, meeting him halfway as he bent to kiss her. It was gentle at first, a question and answer in one breath, then deeper, carrying weeks of restraint finally released, promises made without words. When they parted, both breathless, Eliza felt heat in her cheeks that had nothing to do with the setting sun. "Maria will expect us for supper," she managed. "In a moment." Wade rested his forehead against hers. "I've waited weeks for that. Let me savor it." They stood together as stars began emerging, the ranch peaceful around them. Finally. Wade stepped back, offering his arm with exaggerated formality. "May I escort you to supper, Miss Whitfield? You may, Mr. Hollister." She took his arm, then paused. "Though I should mention Father's given me full authority over ranch decisions while he recovers." "I'm aware." "Including hiring decisions and partnership agreements." He stopped walking. "Eliza." "I'm simply saying that after tomorrow, regardless of the outcome, there might be employment negotiations, better terms, permanent positions." His slow smile made her pulse quicken. "I'm open to negotiations." Supper was a lively affair, with Peter and Tommy debating fence-building techniques while Maria fussed over everyone's plates. Samuel Whitfield had managed to join them at the table, his recovery remarkable over the past week. "Tomorrow's the day," he said as Maria served dessert. "Are you prepared?" "Wade." "As prepared as a man can be for facing his past." "The truth's on your side. That counts for something." Samuel studied him. "My daughter tells me the fences are complete." "Every section. The ranch is fully enclosed, water rights secured, grazing areas divided for rotation. You're set for years to come." "Good. Then you fulfilled your contract." Samuel glanced at Eliza. "Unless there are other arrangements to discuss." Eliza felt her cheeks warm. "Perhaps we should focus on tomorrow's challenges first." Perhaps. Her father agreed, but his knowing smile suggested he'd noticed their joined hands beneath the table. After supper, the evening passed in final preparations. Wade reviewed documents with Patterson, while Eliza helped Maria prepare clothes for court. The boys cleaned weapons, just in case Blackwood tried something desperate. As the house settled for the night, Eliza found herself too restless for sleep. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and stepped onto the porch, unsurprised to find Wade already there. "Nervous?" she asked, settling beside him on the bench. "Terrified," he admitted. "Not of the court, of what comes after. I've been running so long, I'm not sure I remember how to stay." "Then I'll teach you. Consider it continuing education." He laughed softly. "Always the teacher. Always the student. Too, you've taught me things. Wade Hollister." "Such as?" "That courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. That sometimes the best defense is to stop defending and start building. That love isn't weakness." He was quiet for a long moment. "Your former fiancé was a fool." "Yes, but his foolishness led me here, so I can't entirely regret it." "Eliza." He turned to face her. "If things go badly tomorrow, they won't. But if they do, if I have to run again, then I'll run with you." "I can't ask that." "You're not asking. I'm offering, freely and with full knowledge of the risks." She took his hands. "But Wade." We're going to win tomorrow. Do you know why? Because we have evidence, good lawyers, federal support. Because we have something worth fighting for. This ranch, this community, this chance at a future together. Blackwood only has greed. That's a weak foundation. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars wheel overhead. Eventually, Wade spoke again, so quietly she almost missed it. I never expected this. What? To find home. I thought that ended when my mother died, when I realized my father valued profit over people. But here, he gestured at the ranch, the fences straight and true in the moonlight. Here I found people who value the right things, who build instead of take, who stand together against wrong. We're ordinary people, Wade, ranchers and shopkeepers and school teachers. There's nothing ordinary about any of you, especially not you. She leaned against his shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him. Tell me about after, when this is over, when your name is clear. What then? Then I learn to be the man you deserve, the partner your father needs, the member of this community. He pressed a kiss to her hair. If you'll have me. I hired you to fix Father's fences, she said, a smile in her voice. And you fix so much more. The ranch, the community's courage, my faith in the future. She turned her face up to his. My heart. He kissed her again, deeper this time, with promise and passion carefully banked. When they parted, Eliza felt deliciously unsteady. We should rest, Wade said, though he made no move to rise. Long day tomorrow. Yes, she agreed, equally reluctant to move. Finally, propriety and practicality won. At her bedroom door, Wade caught her hand. Eliza, I need you to know regardless of what happens tomorrow, these weeks with you have been worth everything. The running, the fear, the uncertainty. I'd do it all again to end up here. She squeezed his fingers. After tomorrow, you won't have to run anymore. We'll build something new, together. Alone in her room, Eliza sat by the window, mind too full for sleep. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, a desperate woman hiring a mysterious drifter, two damaged souls finding strength in each other, a community discovering its courage. Tomorrow would bring the courtroom battle, Blackwood's final stand, the judgment that would determine Wade's freedom. But tonight, with the ranch secure and love acknowledged, she felt they'd already won the important victories. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Maria peered in, carrying warm milk. Thought you might need this, the older woman said, settling in the chair beside her. Big day tomorrow. The biggest. That young man loves you. I know. And you love him. Yes. Maria nodded approvingly. Good. You need someone who matches your strength, someone who sees you as you are, not as the world tries to make you. She paused. Your mother would have liked him. You think so? A man who works hard, protects what matters, treats everyone with respect. Yes, she would have approved. Maria patted Eliza's hand. Whatever tomorrow brings, you face it together. That's what matters. After Maria left, Eliza finally found sleep, dreaming of straight fences and clear horizons, of a future built on truth and courage and love strong enough to weather any storm. Dawn would bring challenges, but for now, she rested in the certainty that some things were worth any risk, any fight. Wade had fixed the fences as promised. Everything else, the healing, the hope, the unexpected love had been bonus gifts she hadn't dared dream of receiving. Tomorrow they'd fight for the legal right to that future. Tonight, she knew they'd already claimed the emotional one. The first snow of the season fell as they rode toward town, transforming Silver Creek into something from a fairy tale. But Eliza felt no magic, only the weight of what lay ahead. The church had been converted into a makeshift courtroom. its pews packed with townspeople who'd arrived before dawn to witness the confrontation between David and Goliath, or, in this case, between truth and money. Standing room only, Sheriff Morrison reported as they dismounted. Half the territory seems to have heard about this. Wade adjusted his borrowed suit, the formal clothes making him look both distinguished and uncomfortable. Blackwood won't like the publicity. Good, Eliza said firmly. Corruption prefers shadows. Inside, they found their places at the plaintiff's table. Patterson had already arranged the evidence in neat stacks, while across the aisle, Blackwood sat with two expensive lawyers from Denver. The banker's usual smirk was absent, replaced by cold calculation. Judge Harper entered, commanding immediate silence. This hearing will determine multiple matters: the validity of foreclosure proceedings against the Whitfield Ranch, allegations of criminal conspiracy involving Mr. Barnaby Blackwood, and the standing of charges against Mr. Wade Holbrook, also known as Hollister. Your Honor, Blackwood's lead attorney rose smoothly. We move for dismissal. These proceedings combine civil and criminal matters improperly. Motion denied. Harper's tone brooked no argument. The matters are interrelated. We'll proceed efficiently. He nodded to Patterson. Present your case. Patterson began methodically, laying out the evidence they'd gathered. Forged bills of sale for rustled cattle. Bank documents showing systematic manipulation of loan terms. Most damning, correspondence between Blackwood and the Eastern Railway Consortium, discussing the acquisition of prime ranch land through financial pressure. Circumstantial, Blackwood's lawyer objected. My client cannot be held responsible for crimes committed by others, nor for legitimate business practices that some find distasteful. Then perhaps, Patterson said mildly, your client can explain this. He produced a ledger, the one Wade had retrieved from Denver. Mr. Holbrook, would you identify this document? Wade stood, his voice steady. It's the private account book for the Eastern Railway Consortium's land acquisition fund. I recognize it because I helped design the accounting system before I realized what it was being used for. And what was it used for? Bribery, intimidation, funding accidents and incidents designed to force landowners to sell. Wade's gaze found Blackwood. And payments to regional partners who helped identify and pressure vulnerable targets. Objection, Mr. Holbrook is a fugitive, wanted for embezzlement. About that, Patterson smiled. We've had interesting conversations with federal investigators. It seems the embezzlement charges against Mr. Holbrook were based on falsified evidence. The real embezzlers needed a scapegoat when their scheme began unraveling. He submitted a stack of affidavits, sworn statements from 3 consortium employees confirming Mr. Holbrook tried to expose the corruption and was framed for his efforts. The courtroom buzzed with reaction. Judge Harper called for order, then fixed his attention on Blackwood. Mr. Blackwood, do you wish to respond to these allegations? Blackwood stood slowly, his composure cracking. Your Honor, I am a legitimate businessman. If desperate ranchers tell lies, if failed Eastern criminals spin tales, then explain this entry. Patterson pointed to the ledger. October 15th, 1875. B. Blackwood. Silver Creek Partnership established. Initial payment $5,000. Territory Colorado Ranches. Focus on water rights. Forgery. In your handwriting, we've had it analyzed. Patterson produced another document. Would you like to provide a sample for comparison? The courtroom held its breath. Blackwood's lawyers whispered frantically, but the damage was done. Your Honor. Eliza stood, surprising everyone. May I speak? Harper nodded. This affects your family directly. Miss Whitfield, proceed. She moved to the center of the room, addressing not just the judge, but the packed courtroom. Mr. Blackwood came to Silver Creek promising prosperity. Instead, he brought despair. Families driven from homes. Ranches failed through manipulation. Dreams destroyed for profit. Pretty speeches won't pay debts, Blackwood snarled, composure finally breaking. No, but honest work will. Eliza turned to the crowd. Look at what we've accomplished when we stood together. Mr. Chen's store thrives despite the fire meant to silence him. The Morrison Ranch survived rustlers because neighbors stood guard. My family's ranch stands secured because this community refused to let it fall. Your Honor. Wade joined her, their solidarity visible to all. The Eastern Railway Consortium is under federal investigation. 3 members have already been arrested. They're offering evidence against all conspirators in exchange for leniency. He looked directly at Blackwood. How long before they offer you up to save themselves? Blackwood lurched to his feet. You destroyed everything. My plans, my future. You destroyed yourself, Judge Harper interrupted sternly, through greed and corruption. He turned to the court clerk. I've heard enough for preliminary findings. The judge's voice rang with authority. First, all foreclosure proceedings against the Whitfield Ranch are void, based on evidence of fraudulent practices. Second, Mr. Wade Holbrook is cleared of all charges, with commendation for his efforts to expose corruption. Third, Mr. Barnaby Blackwood is bound over for federal prosecution on charges of conspiracy, fraud, and racketeering. No, Blackwood lunged toward Wade, but Sheriff Morrison and his deputies were ready. As they restrained the banker, something fell from his pocket, a telegram. Patterson retrieved it, read quickly, then smiled grimly. From the consortium. They're cutting ties. Mr. Blackwood, seems you're bad for business. As Blackwood was led away, still protesting, the courtroom erupted in cheers. Neighbors surrounded Eliza and Wade with congratulations, but she only had eyes for him. It's over, she breathed. The legal part, he agreed, catching her hands. The rest is just beginning. Outside, snow continued falling as the crowd spilled into the street. Mr. Chen approached with his daughter Lily. Miss Whitfield, Mr. Wade. He bowed formally. The Merchants Association wishes to thank you and to offer Mr. Wade a position on our board if he intends to stay. I intend to stay, Wade said firmly, his arm finding Eliza's waist. Tommy and Peter pushed through the crowd, faces bright with excitement. Does this mean the school can expand with Blackwood gone? That land near the creek? One victory at a time. Eliza laughed, but she was already calculating possibilities. Sheriff Morrison appeared, tipping his hat. Federal marshals are taking Blackwood to Denver tonight. His assets are frozen pending investigation. He smiled. Including that fancy house he built, town council's discussing what to do with it. A new school, Maria suggested, having fought her way through the crowd with remarkable determination. Or a hospital. Both worthy causes. Judge Harper agreed, joining them. But first, I believe there are other matters to settle. His eyes twinkled. Mr. Holbrook, now that you're a free man with prospects, perhaps certain arrangements might be formalized. Wade actually blushed. Judge Harper, are you playing matchmaker? Merely observing that winter's coming, and it's practical for ranching partners to share resources. The judge winked at Eliza. Among other things. The crowd gradually dispersed, heading to the Grand Hotel where Franklin Morse was hosting a celebration. But Eliza and Wade slipped away, walking through the snowy streets toward the church. Seems fitting, Wade said as they entered the now empty building. This is where we won our freedom. Together. Together. Eliza agreed. I like the sound of that. He turned to face her fully. Eliza, I came here with nothing but troubles and lies. You gave me truth and purpose. I can't offer wealth or position. Wade Hollister, if you're about to propose, stop listing what you can offer and tell me what you can. He smiled, that rare full smile that transformed his face. "I can offer my hands for work, my mind for planning, my strength for protection, my heart for loving, my life for sharing. Is that enough?" "More than enough." She stepped into his embrace. "Yes, Wade, to whatever you're asking, yes." He kissed her then, there in the church where justice had prevailed, while snow fell like blessings outside the windows. When they finally parted, both were breathless and grinning. "We should join the celebration," Eliza said without much conviction. "In a moment. I've spent weeks maintaining proper distance, being respectful. Allow me a few minutes of impropriety." She laughed, letting him pull her close again. "Only a few minutes." "Well, we have a lifetime for the rest." When they finally reached the hotel, the party was in full swing. Their entrance together caused knowing smiles and raised glasses. Samuel Whitfield, who'd managed the trip despite his ongoing recovery, beckoned them over. "Daughter, Wade." He studied them with satisfaction. "Do I need to ask the obvious question?" "We've reached an understanding," Eliza said, unable to suppress her smile. "Good. Wade, the partnership offer stands? Full partner, not hired hand. The ranch needs both of you." "I accept," Wade said simply, with gratitude. "None needed. You've earned it." Samuel raised his glass. "To the future." The toast echoed through the room, as Eliza looked around at neighbors who'd become allies, at students who'd become family, at the man beside her who'd become everything she felt the truth of it. They'd won more than a court case. They'd won the right to build something lasting. Patterson approached as the evening wound down. "Congratulations to you both, Mr. Holbrook, or do you prefer Hollister? The federal prosecutor will need your testimony against the consortium, but that won't be for months." "Hollister," Wade said firmly. "Wade Hollister. The other man doesn't exist anymore." "Very well, Miss Whitfield. The Marshal Service wants to commend you for your assistance. There may be a reward for helping expose the conspiracy." "Give it to the school fund," Eliza said immediately. "We have everything we need." Later, as they rode home through the falling snow, Maria dozed in the wagon while Wade and Eliza rode alongside. The ranch appeared through the white curtain, fences standing strong and true. "Home," Wade said softly. "Yes," Eliza agreed. "Home." As they helped Maria down and saw to the horses, Tommy and Peter came running from the bunkhouse. "We kept watch, just like you asked." Tommy reported proudly, "Everything's secure." "Well done." Wade praised them. "Now get inside before you freeze." In the warm kitchen, Maria bustled about making coffee while Samuel settled in his chair, tired but triumphant. The boys chattered about the trial, about Blackwood's downfall, about the future. Mr. Wade, will you teach us more about water management?" Peter asked eagerly. "And maybe surveying if the ranch expands." "When the ranch expands," Wade corrected with a smile. "Yes, I'll teach you. Knowledge should be shared." Eliza watched him with the boys, seeing the natural teacher emerging. He'd make a good father someday, she thought, then blushed at the direction of her thoughts. "Miss Eliza's gone all red," Tommy observed with teenage tactlessness. "That's because she's thinking about wedding planning," Maria said serenely, setting down cups with a clatter. "Maria," Eliza protested. "What, you think I prepared that guest room for nothing? Wade's a proper gentleman, but he's also practical. Winter's coming, and it's foolish to heat two houses when one would do." Samuel laughed, the sound rusty but genuine. "Maria's right. No sense in long engagements at your ages. Judge Harper's authorized to perform ceremonies, and the church is already decorated with snow." Wade caught Eliza's eye, a question in his gaze. She felt her heart racing but nodded slightly. "Mr. Whitfield," Wade said formally, "I'd like to marry your daughter as soon as she'll have me. Tomorrow, if possible." Wade! Eliza gasped. Why wait? He took her hands, ignoring their audience. We've fought for this chance. Let's not waste it. She thought of all the reasons to wait, to plan, to prepare properly. Then she thought of how close they'd come to losing everything, how precious each day was, how right his hands felt holding hers. Tomorrow, she agreed. The kitchen erupted in celebration. Maria immediately began planning food. The boys volunteered to spread the word, and Samuel offered his late wife's wedding ring. She'd want you to have it, he told Eliza, worn by a woman who understood that love meant building something together. That night, as the household settled, Eliza stood at her window watching snow blanket the world in pristine white. A soft knock made her turn. Wade stood in the doorway, maintaining proper distance, but his eyes saying everything. Second thoughts, he asked. Never, you... Only that I should have proposed the day you hired me. Would have saved considerable time. She laughed. You barely knew me then. I knew enough. You walked into that saloon determined to save what mattered. I knew that was someone worth following. He paused. Thank you, Eliza, for seeing past the drifter to the man I could be. Thank you for being that man. They stood there, separated by propriety but connected by promise, until Maria's pointed cough from the hallway sent Wade retreating with a grin. Tomorrow, he promised. Tomorrow, she agreed. As Eliza prepared for bed, she thought about the journey that had brought them here, a desperate woman, a mysterious stranger, a community under threat. Now, a couple in love, a ranch saved, a future bright with possibility. The trial was over, justice served, but the real victory, she knew, was just beginning. Tomorrow she'd marry Wade Hollister in a snow-covered church, surrounded by the community they'd helped save. Together they'd build on the foundation of trust and courage laid during these difficult weeks. The fences were mended. Now it was time to tend what grew within them: love, hope, and the promise of generations to come. Spring arrived early that year, melting snow to reveal green shoots pushing through warming earth. The Whitfield Ranch, now the Whitfield Hollister Ranch, according to the new sign Tommy had carved, bustled with activity. New calves explored the pastures, their mothers grazing contentedly within the strong fences that had weathered the winter storms. Eliza stood on the porch, one hand resting on her slightly rounded belly, watching Wade work with the young men who'd come seeking employment. Word had spread through the territory about their innovative methods: water management, rotational grazing, and most uniquely, the educational component Wade insisted upon. No, like this. Wade demonstrated the proper angle for a fence brace to Peter, who'd become their foreman despite his youth. Remember, we're building for decades, not just seasons. Yes, sir. The same principle applies to the water channels. Exactly. Everything connects. Wade glanced up, catching Eliza's eye and smiling that private smile that still made her heart skip. 4 months after their snow-blessed wedding, Maria emerged from the house, shaking her head. That husband of yours has another telegram from Washington. Those federal prosecutors won't leave him be. Eliza took the message, scanning quickly. They want him to testify next month. The consortium trials are finally beginning. He'll go. We'll go together. Eliza folded the telegram decisively. It's time to close that chapter completely. The school bell rang in the distance, the new school, built where Blackwood's mansion once stood. The town council had voted unanimously to repurpose the land for education, and Eliza had helped design the curriculum. 3 teachers now served where she once worked alone, including Lily Chen, who'd proven gifted with the youngest students, the Mrs. Hollister. Young Sarah Henderson came running up the path, braids flying. Ma says to tell you the Ladies' Aid Society is meeting tomorrow to plan the spring festival. Tell your mother I'll be there, Eliza promised, ruffling the girl's hair. After Sarah scampered off, Maria observed. You've taken on too much, the ranch, the school board, the ladies' aid, and now, she gestured meaningfully at Eliza's condition. I've taken on exactly enough. Eliza corrected. Each piece supports the others. The school ensures educated workers for the ranch. The ladies' aid connects us to the community. And the baby, she smiled, touching her belly. The baby ensures we're building for the future, not just the present. Samuel appeared in the doorway, walking steadily with only a slight limp to show for his injuries. His recovery had been remarkable, aided by purpose and the joy of seeing his daughter flourish. Letter from Denver, he announced, waving an envelope. That banker, Morse, wants to discuss a partnership. Seems our water management system has attracted attention. Good attention, I hope, Wade said, joining them on the porch for the midday meal. The best kind. He wants to fund expansion, help other ranches implement our methods. Samuel settled into his chair with satisfaction. At fair terms, not Blackwood stranglehold. They ate together family, Maria, Peter, and two new hands discussing plans and possibilities. The conversation was interrupted by approaching riders, moving fast. Wade stood immediately, hand moving to his hip where a gun no longer resided. Old habits died hard, but these days he met trouble with law instead of lead. The riders were Sheriff Morrison and a stranger in an Eastern suit, though this one bore the weathering of hard travel. Wade, Morrison called out. This gentleman's been looking for you. Says it's urgent. The stranger dismounted, producing credentials. Robert Ashford, attorney, Mr. Hollister, Mr. Holbrook. I represent your mother's estate. Wade went very still. My mother died 9 years ago. Yes, sir, but she left provisions in trust, to be released only when certain conditions were met. Ashford smiled. Those conditions included the clearing of your name and establishment of legitimate residence, both now satisfied. I don't understand. Your mother inherited considerable assets from her family assets your father couldn't touch. She wanted them preserved for you, but only if you chose a different path than his. The lawyer produced documents. The estate includes properties, investments, and a sum sufficient to ensure comfort for generations. Wade stared at the papers, then at Eliza. She never said, She was protecting it from your father, Ashford explained, and ensuring it would only pass to you when you'd proven yourself worthy of her values, not his. How much? Samuel asked practically. Sufficient to purchase a dozen ranches this size, if invested wisely. Ashford's eyes twinkled. Though I suspect that's not how it will be used. That evening, after Ashford departed with promises to arrange transfers, the family gathered to discuss this windfall. Wade seemed overwhelmed, holding the documents like they might evaporate. We could buy more land, Peter suggested eagerly. Expand the operation. Or improve what we have, Maria countered. Better buildings, modern equipment. Or, Eliza said quietly, we could do what your mother would have wanted. Wade looked at her gratefully. What do you think that would be? She died helping others through illness. She valued community over profit. Eliza took his hand. What if we used part for the ranch, part for the school, and created a fund for families in crisis as safety net for those facing what we faced with Blackwood? The Whitfield Hollister Community Trust, Samuel said slowly. I like it. The Margaret Hollister Trust, Wade corrected, voice thick. After my mother, the vote was unanimous. Over the following weeks, changes came rapidly. The ranch expanded, but thoughtfully purchasing water rights to protect the watershed, adding land that connected neighbors rather than isolated them. The school grew too, with scholarships ensuring no child missed education for lack of funds. Wade threw himself into both projects with enthusiasm, but Eliza noticed his particular joy came from teaching. He'd formalized the ranch apprentice program, combining practical skills with theoretical knowledge. You're building a university out of a cattle operation, she teased one evening, finding him surrounded by diagrams and curriculum plans. Why not? He pulled her onto his lap, careful of her expanding middle. Everything connects. Remember, educated ranchers make better decisions. Better decisions mean sustainable practices. Sustainable practices mean a future for our children, she finished, guiding his hand to where the baby kicked. Children, plural, he raised an eyebrow. I'm a teacher. I like large classes. His laugh rumbled through her. Then we'd better expand the house, too. The federal trial, when it came, proved anticlimactic. Wade testified for 2 days, his evidence helping convict 6 consortium members. The experience was draining, but cathartic, the final severing of ties to his past life. It's finished, he said as they boarded the train home. Truly finished. No, Eliza corrected, watching the prairie roll past. It's beginning. Summer brought the ranch into full glory. The innovative water system Wade designed kept pastures green despite the heat. Cattle grew fat and content, bringing premium prices at market. The community trust had already helped 3 families avoid foreclosure, offering fair loans where banks demanded usury. The spring festival, delayed by the trial, finally occurred in July. The whole territory seemed to gather, celebrating not just the season but survival and renewal. Wade found himself pressed into service as a judge for the pie contest, while Eliza, now heavily pregnant, supervised the children's educational exhibitions. Look at this place, Maria marveled, watching couples dance while children chased fireflies. A year ago, we were broken. Now we're whole, Eliza finished, because we chose to be. As if summoned by her words, a familiar figure appeared at the edge of the festivities. Thomas Hartley, her former fiancé, now wore the prosperous look of a territorial politician. He approached cautiously, hat in hand. Eliza, Mrs. Hollister, might I have a word? Wade materialized at her side, protective but not threatening. Mr. Hartley! I owe you an apology, Thomas said stiffly. My behavior 3 years ago was inexcusable. I let ambition override honor. He gestured at the thriving festival, the clear evidence of the ranch's success. You've built something remarkable here, something I was too small to envision. We've built it, Eliza emphasized, her hand finding Wade's. And your leaving led me here, so perhaps thanks are in order instead. Thomas managed a rueful smile. Gracious as always. I wish you both well. He paused. I'm supporting the education bill in the legislature. Perhaps that's a small amends. After he left, Wade asked, Any regrets? Only that I didn't meet you sooner. She winced suddenly. Oh, Eliza. I think... Another wave of pain. I think the baby has decided to join the celebration. The next hours blurred together the rush home. Maria taking charge. Dr. Morrison arriving just in time. Wade stayed by her side throughout, steady as the fence posts he'd driven, strong as the wire that bound them. When their daughter finally arrived, squalling and perfect, the sun was rising over the mountains. Margaret, Eliza whispered, touching the tiny fingers. Margaret Grace Hollister. After my mother and yours, Wade said, his voice rough with emotion. The women who shaped us, who made us who we needed to be to find each other. Eliza agreed. As the household celebrated and word spread through the community, Eliza dozed with the baby in her arms and Wade keeping watch. She woke to find him writing in a journal. What are you documenting now? Everything, this moment, this feeling, so she'll know how wanted she was, how hard-won this life is. He looked up. So she'll understand that sometimes the longest journeys lead to exactly where we belong. Outside, Peter and Tommy were already at work, their voices carrying on the morning air as they directed the newer hands. The ranch operated smoothly now, each person understanding their role in the larger whole. We should expand the school again. Eliza said suddenly, add dormitories for students from outlying areas. Already planning our daughter's education. Planning everyone's education breaks cycles of poverty and ignorance. It builds futures. She shifted the baby gently. Besides, she'll need classmates. True, and siblings. Wade Hollister, I just delivered this child. I'm thinking long-term, like you taught me. He kissed her forehead. Rest now. We have time. Time. Once their enemy, now their ally. Time to build, to grow, to love. Later that day, as friends and neighbors came to meet young Margaret, Judge Harper made an observation that resonated. You know what you've really done here, he asked, admiring the baby. You've proved that courage is contagious. One person stands up, others find their spine. One family succeeds through cooperation. Others see the possibility. The judge is getting philosophical, Sheriff Morrison teased. The judge is getting old, Harper corrected. But not too old to recognize transformation when I see it. He looked at Wade and Eliza. You two didn't just save a ranch, you saved a community's soul. As evening fell and visitors departed, the new family sat on the porch where so much had transpired. The fences stood strong in the fading light, but they were no longer barriers, they were frameworks supporting abundance. Was it worth it? Eliza asked Wade. Everything you went through to get here? He looked at her, at their daughter, at the thriving ranch and the community beyond. I'd do it all again. Every mile, every fear, every fight. He smiled. But I'm glad we can give Margaret an easier path. Not too easy, Eliza cautioned. Character comes from meeting challenges. With you as her mother, I'm not worried about her lacking challenges. He dodged her playful swat. I mean, she'll challenge everything, question everything, like her mother. And build solutions, like her father. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge, the same stars that had witnessed their first meeting, their struggles, their triumphs. Now those stars looked down on completion and continuation both. What now? Wade asked eventually. We've saved the ranch, cleared my name, started a family. What's next? Eliza smiled, thinking of the plans already percolating the agricultural college they'd discussed with Morse. The women's literacy program Maria wanted to start. The legal aid fund Judge Harper suggested. Now we live, she said simply. We build on what we've started. We raise Margaret and her siblings to understand that strength comes from community, that education opens doors, that love requires courage. She paused. And we remember that sometimes the best things come from the unexpected. Like a drifter in a saloon. Like a desperate woman who hired him. She shifted the baby to her shoulder. Though I think Maria was right that first night. We were both exactly where we needed to be. As if in agreement, Margaret cooed, a sound of pure contentment that echoed across the ranch. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle announced the connection to wider worlds. But here, in this moment, everything necessary was within reach. The fences were complete, but they were just the beginning. What grew within them love, hope, community, and the promise of educated generations would ripple outward like water through Wade's irrigation channels, nourishing ground they'd never see. I love you, Mrs. Hollister, Wade said quietly. I love you too, Mr. Hollister. She smiled at the sleeping baby. All three of us do. 4, he corrected, hand touching her belly with gentle speculation. Just planning ahead. Always the engineer, she laughed. Always the teacher, he countered. And in that exchange lay their future building and educating, planning and nurturing, creating something that would last long after they were gone. The virgin who'd hired him to fix her father's fences had found so much more than repaired boundaries. She'd found a partner, a purpose, and a promise that some things, once fixed, stayed strong forever. Thank you all for listening to this story of love, courage, and community in the Old West. I hope Wade and Eliza's journey reminded you that sometimes our greatest challenges lead to our greatest blessings. Please share in the comments where you're listening from. I'd love to hear your thoughts and connect with fellow Western romance enthusiasts around the world. If you enjoyed this tale, please subscribe to Wild West Night for more stories of frontier love and adventure. Don't forget to like this video and hit the hype button to help more listeners discover these heartwarming stories. Until next time, partners.